Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Aisling and this is going to be another reading vlog. So this week I am going to read a book that I have read before. So it's a rare reread for me, and that book is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. I read this book about 3 years ago and I looked up on Goodreads this morning what rating I gave it, and I gave it 3 stars, and then I read 10 pages and I was like, what was wrong with me giving this book 3 stars? So to rewind, myself and Sean are going to see Ocean Vuong in person in Dublin next Thursday. I just want to reread this book because I always have felt since I read it that it was a bit of a right book, wrong time situation. Like, I think this should be one of my favourite books of all time. I've read a lot of Vuong's poetry. I really love Time as a Mother. But for some reason, the novel On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous has sort of evaded me a little bit, and I felt kind of strange about it once I finished it. I was like, why didn't I love that book in the way that I feel like I should? And I think it was just my state of mind and my mood at the time, and when I read this book I was probably looking for something kind of a lot more plot heavy. I mean, I feel like I was probably more in the mood for something like a thriller, and this is very much like a literary contemporary novel. It's very poetic. You can tell that Ocean Vuong is a poet when you're reading this book. It is beautifully written. But 3 stars, like, what was wrong with me? This is a book written from the perspective of a young man, and he's writing a letter to his mother, but his mum actually can't read. So himself and his mum are immigrants into the USA, but he's been raised in America and has fit in probably a lot better than his mum. She never learns to read, and this is a letter written from the son to the mother, and it kind of speaks of his experiences with his mother. It's very heavily about their relationship, but it's also about his experiences as somebody who is not white moving to America, and just the sort of microaggressions that he falls victim to time and time again. I say falls victim to. He doesn't fall victim to, he is a victim of people being cruel. I think that's very important to say. It's an absolutely stunning novel, and I just feel like there was something wrong with me at the time. So we're giving it another go, but I got, I think, like 10 pages in, and there's this quote, and I just read it over and over again. You once told me that the human eye is God's loneliest creation, how so much of the world passes through the pupil and still it holds nothing. The eye alone in its socket doesn't even know there's another one, just like it, an inch away, just as hungry as empty. Opening the front door to the first snowfall of my life, you whispered, look. I don't know, like, there's just, I think Vuong is really good at observing and making observations, and I feel like all writing is about observing, but there's something so succinct, and he really goes so deep into the nitty-gritty of things and points out things that just I've never thought about before. Kind of laces ordinary things with a real dose of melancholy, and if you know me, you know I love a melancholic book. So we're giving it a round 2, and I have a feeling that this book is definitely going to go up a lot in my estimation. So, surprise, surprise, in a turn of events that will shock absolutely nobody, I haven't vlogged at all. So the last footage I took was Friday, and today is the following Thursday, which is actually the day that we're going to Dublin to see Ocean Vuong. I was a bit distracted finishing off another book. I just didn't want to start another book properly until I had finished the book that I was reading. But the book that I was reading was like 700 pages and I just felt like it was never going to end. And then I was like, I'm not going to put myself under pressure to read On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. If I haven't got it finished by today, that's okay. I've read it before, so it is a reread. And yesterday, I just read the whole thing. The whole thing. I underlined a lot. It is a beautifully written novel. Incidentally, yesterday, the author himself posted on social media to say that this book has been out for 5 years now, and he had just found out that it had been banned in a small town, I think, in America, which absolutely baffles me because I think trying to keep this book from people is an absolute travesty. I just couldn't imagine living in a place where someone could decide that I can't read this book or books like this book. This book is magnificent. So when I first read this book, I gave it 3 stars, I think, and I read it 3 years ago. And honestly, I don't know where my brain was at the time because I read it again yesterday, and there's a very significant character in this book that I was like, I don't remember this person at all, and I didn't remember what happened. So it was like reading a brand new book for the very first time. It is stunning. I don't know where I was going with my 3 stars, so I gave it 4 stars upon finishing it last night because I'm very stingy with my 5 stars. But I'm sitting here now and I'm like, we might return to that rating later. So this book follows a young boy who lives in America with his mother and his grandmother. They're from Vietnam, so he is the first generation of his family to have English, and it's a lot about his relationship with his mother and with his grandmother, how they struggle in a country where they don't really speak the language, all these microaggressions that they are victims to just because of how they look, the colour of their skin. So it's a lot about race, it's a lot about family, it's a queer book as well, and it just feels like so cliche to say like, oh, this book is essential, but I just feel like it's, you can really tell that Ocean Vuong is a poet. Some of the sections of the book really read like parts out of some of his poetry books in the kind of formatting and in just the devastation that he wreaks. I'm just flicking through the book there, looking at sections that I underlined. I'll read this little paragraph for you. It is no accident, ma, that the comma resembles a fetus, that curve of continuation. We were all once inside our mothers, saying with our entire curved and silent selves, more, more, more. I want to insist that our being alive is beautiful enough to be worthy of replication. And so what? So what if all I ever made of my life was more of it? Right? Yeah, just beautiful. Like, I mean, look, I just keep underlining when I read. I'm gonna read another bit, and I swear I won't read anymore. This bit's a bit longer. You were okay that day. You even smiled twice through the cigarette smoke. I remember it. I remember it all, because how can you forget anything about the day you first found yourself beautiful? I turned the shower off, and instead of toweling and dressing before the steam on the door mirror cleared, like I normally would, I waited. It was an accident. My beauty revealed to me. I was daydreaming, thinking about the day before of Trevor and me behind the Chevy, and had stood in the tub with the water off for too long. By the time I stepped out, the boy before the mirror stunned me. Who was he? I touched the face, its sallow cheeks. I felt my neck, the braid of muscles sloped to collarbones that jutted into stark ridges. The scraped out ribs sunken as the skin tried to fill its irregular gaps. The sad little heart rippling underneath like a trapped fish. The eyes that wouldn't match, one too open, the other dazed, slightly lidded, cautious of whatever light was given it. It was everything I hid from, everything that made me want to be a sun, the only thing I knew that had no shadow. And yet I stayed. I let the mirror hold those flaws because for once, drying, they were not wrong to me, but something that was wanted, that was sought and found among a landscape as enormous as the one I had been lost in all this time. Because the thing about beauty is that it's only beautiful outside of itself. Seen through a mirror, I viewed my body as another, a boy a few feet away, his expression unmoved, daring the skin to remain as it was, as if the sun, setting, was not already elsewhere, was not in Ohio. I got what I wanted, a boy swimming toward me, except I was no shore ma. I was driftwood trying to remember what I had broken from to get here. I don't know, man. I don't know, this book. I don't know where my head was at when I was reading this first. I really don't remember so much of it. I feel like I just must have skim read it. I wasn't in the mood for it, and I feel like my writing was entirely unfair. Like, I knew that I could see that the writing was beautiful and it should have been hitting me, but it wasn't. And on a reread, like, I thought I was going to read a few pages yesterday and I couldn't stop. Not because the story is essentially like really compulsive or anything like that. It's just because the writing is so beautiful. Like, there is a plot, but I wouldn't say it's like super plot heavy. It's definitely a more character driven, word driven novel. It is beautiful, and I'm so very much looking forward to seeing the author himself later on today. So it's been a bit of an authory week for me because something else happened that I am just absolutely like blown away by, and I'm going to tell you about it. Right, so I have had this book. It's called Benny and Omar, and it was written by Owen Colfer, who wrote Artemis Fowl. So, you know, the Disney series is based on his books, but this was his debut novel. The first ever author event that I went to, my mum brought me to, and it was in my local library, and it was like a publicity thing for the launch of this novel in particular. So my mom used to always write the dates on books when she bought them for us. So this one was bought on the 27th of May 1999. So that was the day I went to this event, I think. And I was a very shy child. I'm still quite introverted, but I'm able to ask for what I want quite a lot more than I was when I was 9 years old. So I was 9 at the time. So I never actually asked Owen Colfer for an autograph because I was too afraid to approach him. I was too shy. And I loved this book with my whole heart. I couldn't tell you how many times 9-year-old Aisling read this book. And I've read, like, I still have 3 more of his novels on my shelves on top of this one as well. He was a very special and important author to me as a child. I was fascinated by the fact that somebody that lived so close to me could write a book, could publish a book, because I, in my head, felt like writing was something that people did not anywhere near me. It was like the people around me didn't write. I didn't understand that writing was something that anybody could do, given like the dedication and the time and the honing of the craft. So it just fascinated me that this man that was from a town that was 40 minutes down the road from me could write a book, and a book that I really loved, and could write subsequent books, and then could write books that became incredibly popular. Like, it blew my mind. But this book in particular is really special to me because I got it from like my first author event. But I always felt a little bit sad about the fact that I was too shy to actually ask the author for an autograph. And like, when people ask me sometimes, like, do you have any regrets about your life? And I jokingly say that I really regret not getting Benny and Omar signed. You know where this is going, right? So on Sunday just gone, I was scrolling as you do, and I realised that there was going to be an author event in another library that's not too far from me, and the man himself, Owen Colfer, was going to be one of the authors that was featured there. It was celebrating Billy Roche, so an Irish playwright, and well, he's a lot more as well, but it was kind of celebrating his career, and Owen Colfer was one of the people that was there. So I booked in, and off I trundled to that library on Thursday evening, and I sat in the front row, and Owen Colfer was like about 3 feet away from me, and the second the event ended I was like, Owen! I had my pen ready, I had my book ready. He kind of laughed when I took this book out of my bag because this is like a first edition, was published I think 26 years ago, and probably not the book that he would be known for, but I did mention to him that I had been at an author event 25 years ago and that I had been too shy to ask him to sign it for me, and so he did this time around. So I finally have come full circle and I finally got Benny and Omar signed. So he wrote to Aisling all these years later with an exclamation mark, and I think of any book that I've ever gotten signed in my whole life, this is the most special because I waited so long to get it signed, and I literally had a little cry on the way home because I was so happy. And yeah, so I finally have a signed edition of Benny and Omar. I think it's probably one of my most prized possessions ever, and like I have books signed by Sally Rooney and you know, I mean I have books signed by pretty big authors, and I'm going to see Ocean Vuong today, and the excitement for that hasn't a patch on having Owen Colfer sign my book. So that's that. So yeah, isn't it great that we can go to author events and have our books signed? And I mean, I went to the Billy Roach Owen Colfer event on Thursday, and that was in my library, so that was free. And I'm going to see Ocean Vuong today, and the tickets for that were €10 each. So I'm going to go see like two really important authors to me for €10 altogether. And I feel like any other sort of medium, if I wanted to go meet the makers, I have to pay so much money. Like you go to a concert and like you're so used to spending €100 for the ticket, and if you want to actually meet the artists then it's so much more. Or you know, same with a film, you have to pay for your film ticket, which like at the moment I think is like often about €14, which is madness, and you just see the film on the screen. And I am absolutely not dissing that, I go to the cinema regularly, but you know what I mean, like there's something really lovely about authors in that there's no pizzazz about them generally. It's just they're sharing their gift with the world, and obviously they want to sell books, but they just go to a room and they meet people, and it's never really all that expensive. Actually, speaking of Sally Rooney, there's an event in Dublin in September and the tickets are €20, and I looked at it and I was like, that's a bit pricey. It's not at all, but just because, you know, I go to author events and they're generally quite cheap, but Sally Rooney is obviously Sally Rooney. But my partner did say like, we're going to go see Ocean Vuong for €10 and Sally Rooney is 20 and she lives in Ireland. Well, presumably. I don't know. Anyway, I've rambled on quite a bit and I apologise for that, and I apologise for basically flaking out on the vlog a bit, but hopefully today I will get some footage in Dublin. We don't have much time because Sean's working until 12:30, and then it'll probably take us about 2 hours to get into Dublin city centre after we leave, so probably like 4 by the time we get there. But the event is in Trinity College, in one of the buildings there. I've been on the grounds of Trinity College, which, speaking of Sally Rooney, it's the college that Marianne and Connell go to in Normal People. I've been on the grounds, but I've never actually been inside any of the buildings, I don't think. I've never seen the Book of Kells or the library or anything like that. But yeah, so I'm going to Dublin.
imagine Van Gogh singing Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah into his cut ear and feeling peace. Green voices in the rain, green rain in the voices.
So I'm back again. It is the following day after the Ocean Vuong event, and once again I have entirely failed at vlogging. Aren't you so surprised? But the event was actually incredible. If you ever get the opportunity to spend time in the same room as Ocean Vuong, you would be very silly to turn down that opportunity. The way that he speaks about the world and his work is absolutely incredible. Like, just delicious what that man does to my brain, I swear. It was really interesting how he spoke about his work in terms of labour and how his family have, for better or for worse, paved a way for him to work at a desk as a writer through their toils in manual labour. And he portrayed this really great image that really stuck with me of like kind of his family working in nail salons, like bent over people's feet, giving pedicures, and then the parallel between how they did that and are potentially still doing that, and how that parallels him when he sits and there's that curve on his spine at a writing desk. Really interesting. He spoke about Seamus Heaney, particularly his poem Digging, is that what it's called? It's a poem that I think, I'm not sure about nowadays, but definitely when I was in school it was one of those ones that like everybody had to study at one point. And it was really interesting how he kind of interspersed that poem with these ideas of labour and writing, and I absolutely just loved that so much. He also spoke about writing in terms of like this idea of how he dislikes being representative of something rather than just being present, and I thought that was so interesting. And I feel like my mind was a little bit blown by the whole thing. It was just such a lovely event to go to, and it really brought so much more to like my enjoyment of this book as well, and my understanding of this book. The queue was really long, but I got my book signed and he spelled my name correctly, which is always nice because I always have this fear when people sign my book and ask for my name that they're going to spell it wrong, and then it feels like it's not signed for me. The joys of having an Irish name. But yes, I'm going to call this vlog there. I'm going to leave it at that. I am so grateful to you for watching, and fair play to you if you stuck with me this far, because this vlog has been more of a flop than anything. But you're getting a video on Sunday anyway, so yeah, that's that. Let me know if you've read any Ocean Vuong, if you liked his novel, or if you've indeed enjoyed his poetry. I know a lot of people find his poetry kind of not the most accessible, so I'd be curious to hear from you if you have tried his poetry. I definitely love poetry personally, and I love his poetry, but I could see why some people find it quite intimidating in some ways. But yes, I'm getting off track anyway. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll talk to you next week in another video. Bye bye.